So this is quite literally the very first ride. I actually have not gotten off of the bike since the very first time that I sat on it. We've got just 1 mile on the odometer, so we'll use the single quick push to start function here. And it is warmed up a little bit, so we will take right off here. Because this is the very first ride, we're still in the break-in period up to 500 miles. I will not be going over half throttle. And then I think up to 1,000 miles, you're not supposed to go past 3/4. We're also, of course, supposed to vary throttle, so we're not just sitting at a constant RPM. We also don't want to be sitting and idling. But none of that means we can't have a little bit of fun and see what this thing will do. And if you guys are unfamiliar with me in the channel, I've got an XR650L and a DR650, and I suppose a 701 Enduro that I've been doing sort of adventure builds on, because most of the time I need to travel about an hour to get to any trails. This bike I might do something similar with some wind protection and probably some navigation and probably a whole bunch of stuff, but we are just going to kind of ride it stock for a little while. Whoop. Doing 50 miles an hour and we're in 5th gear, and I just looked for 6th already. But I don't really think that I would need it. It honestly feels pretty good at this speed, and I would be more than happy to cruise on this thing for I think a pretty extended period of time, at least how I'm feeling so far. The seat is definitely, I would say, firm, and of course with just 2 miles on it, it's not going to feel completely broken. I don't know how much it's going to break in. I guess we'll see. I'm not uncomfortable yet, and the ergonomics of it really feel pretty decent. Definitely different from my builds, because I tend to like to bring the bars up a little ways. But the biggest thing, we got to take it easy on the tires. I don't want to though. And that's because really the biggest thing that I've noticed is just how good this thing feels and how responsive the throttle is, and even just how nice the engine feels. And of course, once I'm able to get past the 1,000-mile mark and really rail this thing, we might even, I guess, have a little bit more fun, because actually this thing doesn't make peak horsepower until like 8,000 RPM, and I think it's supposed to be somewhere around 38 horsepower, where my other big bore thumpers are, well, acclaimed 40, more like 35-ish at the wheel. The torque is definitely lower on this at like 23, I think, or something like that, 23 pound-feet. Watch the gravel. I do have to say though, at these speeds, this bike feels, man, a lot more nimble, I think, than the XR and the DR, and it definitely feels different. It's certainly a bit higher as far as the center of gravity goes in comparison to the DR650. Oh, but it really is just peppy, and I think that is that EFI. And I know a lot of the old iron kind of old school guys that really like to tune carburetors do not like EFI at all, but man, I think if you're anybody else, and probably the majority of the population these days, EFI is just so nice. I mean, there are a lot of great things about a carburetor. I had a lot of fun tuning, well, I guess watching my buddy Jason tune his DR650 build, but man, there's nothing quite like fuel injection on a bike like this. It feels great. And we are on the SDMS at setting A, so this would be the, well, most lively that this bike is going to feel with the factory tunes. And boy, I'm really pretty excited and interested to see what this thing feels like once you get it a bit higher up. But I don't think you guys could see me smiling. This is not what I expected from this bike, and not what I remembered about my very first DRZ400, or I guess the only other DRZ400 that I've ever owned in 2008. It was my first dual sport, and I was coming off of bikes like a CBR 600RR, so obviously it felt, well, just about, I think, as different as you can without hopping on like a road glide or something, or a Goldwing. I think the best way to describe how this thing feels is just clean. And I mean, it is a brand new bike, so obviously, you know, even in comparison to the XR650, which has close to 2,000 miles, you know, it's not an apples to apples comparison, but I mean, I got that bike with, I thought it was more like 1,000 miles or 900, but I think it was actually like 700, so it was kind of broken in. But usually I think bikes feel a little bit better after they're broken in, and boy, I can't wait for that, because this thing already feels so good. The clutch pulls so nice. Like I said, the throttle is just so responsive and just feels so good. And really, even the handling of it, I mean, I suppose the last bike I was on was my 701 Enduro, and I did put probably near 150 miles on it. And honestly, on the way home, I was kind of thinking, and that's kind of a long ride for me. Now that I'm a dad, I don't get out and ride 3 times a week like I used to. So maybe that has something to do with it. But boy, the bars on here feel so much smoother than that bike does. And if you guys haven't been watching, I've been contemplating this and the KTM 390 Adventure R. Oh, that's cool. And I was really leaning towards that bike because it would have definitely fit, I think, kind of what I needed, or what I thought I needed from the start, which was something that felt really good at highway speeds, or even at, 55. On this thing right now, wind noise is probably going to be not so great at 60. Yeah, there is no 6th gear, but at 60 miles an hour, which is probably not actual, we're probably only doing 60 is probably more like 57, unless it's right on, which I guess it could be. We'll have to check that someday. Don't take my word for it. Boy, I could see sitting at 60 miles an hour with this thing for a pretty long period of time if I had to. It's certainly not as nice as 50 or 55. I would say 50 is kind of the sweet spot, and that might change a bit once I get some miles on it. Bars are definitely much calmer now. At 60, it kind of feels like the 701 did. But I guess what I was trying to say is, on that bike on the way home, I was really feeling like I was, well, not very happy with my bike choice, and I was kind of wondering if this was going to feel about the same. And I mean, none of them are really meant to do, hundreds of miles a day. Obviously, a dual sport and adventure bike are different for specific reasons. Adventure bike is meant to do long miles on the road and a little bit of off-roading here and there. Dual sport is meant to be on the pavement for a shorter period of time, depending on the dual sport, but then, it's supposed to be obviously much lighter and much more fun and easier to handle off-road. So you have to kind of pick your battle and decide what exactly concessions you're willing to make, because of course it's always a compromise when you're looking at on and off-road bikes. Well, that transmission feels nice. I will do a little bit of gravel road here, and there is a mode for that. Of course, we could turn the traction control off or on, but I think I'm gonna wait until I can actually get this thing up past a 1/2 or 3/4 throttle. I don't want to idle here for very long, but we will turn the ABS off if I can figure out how to do that. I think we just hold it down, maybe. Nope. Yep, there we go. So that just turns the rear off, which is what I want, because if I accidentally grab a handful of, oh great, front brake. All right, well, I don't really want to ride through the dust cloud. Ooh, actually, this will be a good test though. So it seems like the SDMS settings, which is again sort of your fueling and the traction control, I think will save the settings when you shut it off, the ABS. My guess is it's not going to. But we'll wait for the dust to clear here. We'll take a bit of a drink. Turn it back on and see what it does. 7 miles. Yeah, so traction control, they save the settings. ABS does not, which I think is just kind of a safety feature. So if I was to have shut this off after off-roading and then get back on the pavement, I wouldn't get myself in a wreck without ABS, or be in a position where I need ABS and don't have it. But with just the rear turned off, that means that I can, of course, drag the rear, and it won't meter anything, or it won't activate the ABS, where it should slow down a little bit. We don't need to scratch this bike up on a gravel road. I'm sure it'll be on its side at some point after we do some single track, which we need some definite bash protection, because there is very, very little in the way of bash protection. So let's see, put the landing gear out just in case, and give the front a squeeze. Yeah, that's not... Oh, somebody's calling me. Leave me alone, I'm busy trying to enjoy the new DRZ4S. Oh, and I sure am. Oh, I hope this doesn't auto answer. Hello? I think I turned it off. Wonder how annoying that's going to be to have that open. Hopefully the camera takes care of that wind noise, because obviously we have very little in the way of wind protection. But I think, since I've got so much to do on the XR and the DR yet, I think I'm just going to kind of leave this thing stock, which is going to be difficult for me. The first upgrade I usually do is different bars. I think on this one, though, since this has already got a 1 1/8 fat bar, which basically just means that the very center portion is that dimension, then it tapers down to just a standard 7/8, so you can put regular controls on it. I think I'm just going to leave it and see what I think. Boy, I can tell on this pea gravel, I think you'd call it, a little bit bigger rocks, the front's definitely shooting around a bit. Darn side-by-sides are tearing up the trails. And this is Oneida County, which means I cannot, with my 38 horsepower machine here, take it off-road. What is this? Well, I guess we're sort of off the pavement, but I cannot take it on the ATV trails because they're worried that is this a cop? What is going on? Am I getting pulled over? I don't think so. It must be headed somewhere. A cop UTV. Is he pulling me over? Why is he pulling me over? Oh, because I don't have my license plate yet. It's the sheriff. We're going to get a visit from the sheriff. I'll probably have to turn the camera off. We'll ask if they want to be on YouTube. Oh, this is the guy I passed. Oh, that's funny.
How's it going?
Good, how are you?
Not too bad.
Do you want to be on YouTube, or should I shut my cameras off?
It don't matter.
Really? Oh, cool. Thanks. I appreciate that.
No worries.
That's awesome. Do you mind being on YouTube?
No, it's fine.
No? Cool. All right. I suppose you want to know why I don't have a plate, huh?
Yeah, that's the only...
I just picked it up yesterday. I can get the paperwork out if you want to see it.
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Sure, yeah.
You're driving by, we're like... Yeah.
I didn't realize you guys were sheriff when I passed you. I thought you were just booze cruising as everybody else does.
No, definitely not.
You're keeping us safe out here, huh?
Trying to make it.
Oh, come on. When are you going to open your ATV trail so I can ride on them?
We're open.
No. Not a dual sport, though.
Yeah, not for motorcycles.
Oh.
Yeah. Lincoln and Langley both let you, but
Yeah,
you guys won't.
To be honest, I don't know really why they don't.
Yeah.
It's always been that way. What are you filming for? Just your channel? Or?
Yeah. I do this for a living.
Really?
Yeah.
I was gonna say, that's a pretty sweet setup. That's pretty sweet.
Thank you. Yeah, it's not a bad job. This doesn't seem like too bad of a job either, though. Do you guys like it?
It's not. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty nice. Yeah.
I suppose some days I'm sure it's not near as fun.
Yeah. This isn't too bad.
Yeah. Do you mind if I step off?
Absolutely. Go ahead. So is this a channel that you have on YouTube?
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
how you're... Okay.
I've been doing it full time for a little bit over a year now, like a year and a half or so. But I've been making videos for like 8 years. Everything all good?
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. I guess they like just got this bike before I picked it up, and they're still waiting for there's some acronym for it or whatever that I have to go back in and sign, and then they send it out, and then we'll get the plate and the title and stuff. So
Cool. Okay.
cool. Well, thanks guys. Stay safe out there. Good talking to you.
What's your channel name?
Swanky Cat.
Swanky Fat?
Swanky Cat.
Swanky Cat.
Yep. It's a weird name, I know. I have a cat that has no tail and lays down and drinks water, and I always called him Swanky Cat. And then I decided that'd be a good name for a channel for some reason. And that was before I ever decided what I was going to do with it. So now I'm Swanky Cat. So whatever. You too. Thank you. What a nice bunch of guys. So anyway, where were we at here? Like I was telling them that you can't ride these on their ATV trails, and they don't know why either. It's kind of silly because the side-by-sides tear everything up and are far more dangerous than somebody on a 38 horsepower dual sport, but oh well, maybe someday. Lincoln and Langley counties, which are the counties to the south of here, are both open and have some amazing trails that we're going to take this bike on, and I cannot wait for that. I really hope I zip that up. Definitely don't want to lose that paperwork. Now, as far as picking this thing up off of the side stand, it doesn't really feel too heavy, but because it is a little bit high off the ground, once you get kind of off center a little bit, there is some weight there, but it's really not bad. Probably fairly similar to the old DRZ, I would think. Maybe a little better. When you're seated on it, especially since I can't reach the ground real well, and I'm 5'10", 31-inch inseam at about 150 pounds, it's, I don't know, manageable. Not super confidence-inspiring for a newer rider, but it works. If I sort of shuffle off to the side a bit, I can easily get 1 foot flat, but in the center of the bike, I'm kind of on my tiptoes. I don't think I would say that this is a great bike for a new rider, but because it has those different settings for the fueling that you can kind of tame it down a bit, I mean, I could see where it would work for a new-ish rider, but I would probably suggest something like a CRF-300L or something that's a little bit lower to the ground and maybe a little bit less horsepower and not quite so top-heavy feeling, which, I mean, that is relative. It's a very nice feeling bike still, just not quite as low center of gravity feeling as something like the DR650 or a TW200. Boy, this thing sure does make you tower over it. I suppose the tack position isn't bad, but having those foot pegs down a little lower I think would be kind of nice. Oh man, what a gorgeous day. Such a nice day to be out testing a dual sport. Thank you, Lord. I could not be happier or feel more blessed right now. And I want to say a huge thanks to all of you guys that watch and comment and hit the like button, and a extra special thank you to all you guys that use my affiliate links when you purchase your gear. Of course, no pressure. I don't want to sell anybody anything they don't need, but we'll be doing lots of mods, and of course you guys can check out all the links to my stuff down in the description, and I definitely appreciate you guys that take the time to use those links before you purchase your gear. It is quite literally what makes this possible, along with the e-bike stuff, but also a huge thanks to all my channel members out there. You guys are the best, and I hope you're excited to see a lot more of the DRZ4S on the channel. And that will honestly be a little bit of a challenge for me. I've got a lot to do with the DR and the XR, and I think some of that's going to have to just hold off because, man, I think it's going to be imperative for the channel and just silly to not make videos on this thing right away. And boy, I cannot wait. What a nice bike. And it really ergonomically does feel pretty good here. The gravel and the high center of gravity here definitely make it feel not near as comfortable as the DR650, and actually the first time that I rode a DR and noticed how nice that low center of gravity feeling was on my buddy Jason's 06 when I test drove it, and that had the stock tires on it, and these tires actually seem like they're a little bit more off-road oriented and a little bit better for just off-road, you know, less than ideal traction type situations in general than the Deathwings on the DR650, but they're not all that much different. They're fairly similar. And with the higher center of gravity on this bike, I can tell it is not near as planted feeling as the DR650. I mean, don't get me wrong, it feels good, but it does feel, I would say, kind of a little nervous on this gravel anyways, and a little high, which I mean, I'm not saying it's an awful bike, of course. My job, quite literally, is to take these things out and tell you exactly what I'm noticing, and that is what I'm noticing. Gravel in general, though, is not generally, especially kind of rolly gravel like this, is not something that ever feels great. So it'll be interesting to see how they feel on the dirt, how they do in the mud, maybe a little bit of sand. Well, you really don't have to get above half throttle to enjoy this thing. We've got no traction control. And in fourth gear, I guess we can bump it down. Yeah, it definitely feels a little high. Not as easy to power slide as, oh, somebody lost a shoe, as the XR or the DR. But my XR650L is lowered, of course, which certainly cleaned up the handling, which that bike kind of felt like this, just heavier, top heavier. Heavier? Well, yeah, heavier. That bike's 346, and this one's 330. We do have a full tank of fuel, which I suppose actually you can see that by looking at the gauge. We've got a gear readout on the upper left. We've got the fuel bar at the top in the middle. And then I'm not actually looking at it. I'm watching as we go around the corner. And we've got a clock on the right-hand side, which might actually be correct. I'm not sure. One thing I did want to mention, though, is up that hill with that sort of chattery, whooped-out gravel there. This suspension feels really pretty nice. And that is, I think, a bit of one of the big things that they changed about this bike. And if you guys are interested in all the changes, I've actually got a video that I can link in the upper right. That I went through all of the information that came out when they very first had this bike on their website, and the suspension is one of those things that was a pretty substantial change. They seem to have put quite a bit of effort into that. And is it a Showa suspension? I believe it is, and it really does feel quite good. And I think, even though it is, like I said, a little bit top-heavy feeling and a little nervous on this gravel, trying to get the rear to light up just a little bit to slide, it definitely feels pretty darn good. It doesn't squat a whole lot, so it'll be interesting to see what we can get out of it as far as pulling the front wheel off the ground when we're on the trails, because of course that's fairly important if you want to ride aggressively. And I'm certainly not a motorcycle instructor or anything, but I've definitely found that my riding has improved, and going through puddles and crossing debris in the trail is, well, in my uneducated, unprofessional opinion, a little bit easier when you can loft the front wheel over the ground or the obstacle or the water or whatever. It helps keep the bike cleaner too, and you cleaner as well, when you can keep the front from splashing in the water. Woo. But boy, yeah, I mean, other than that little bit of nervous feeling on the gravel, this thing on a gravel road, I know it's not off-road, feels excellent. Oh, what an absolutely gorgeous day for a ride, huh? This thing just feels so good. And if you guys haven't been watching, how's that rear brake feel? Oh, pretty nice, in a good spot. If you guys haven't been watching the couple videos that I put out on this thing, you know that when they finally came out with the MSRP price of this, I was a little bit taken aback, as were I think a lot of people, just because the old DRZ was, well, substantially cheaper. MSRP on this I think is $8,999, but I gotta say, I think my initial assessment of this being too pricey, and I haven't watched anybody else's videos on these, but I've been hearing rumors or rumblings that a lot of other people that have test ridden these are also thinking that this thing maybe is worth exactly what they're asking for it. And obviously we've only got 13 miles on it, but boy, from the little bit of miles that I've put on this, the little bit of tinkering that I did and kind of poking around a little bit, the seat is incredibly hard to take off. Not incredibly hard, but incredibly slow compared to what I would like it to be. There's lots of fasteners, but other than that, I've been loving everything about this, and it looks, feels, rides, and even smells like a premium motorcycle. This, I think, I know it's early, and I'm not, this is not my end-all be-all assessment of this motorcycle. You will definitely hear some, well, critiques about it if I can find them, of course. But I think what the guy that that sold me this bike at the dealership said is, well, I would say completely accurate. I think Suzuki hit the nail on the head with this thing. This is an awesome motorcycle. Oh, that is a good looking bike, isn't it? The only thing that I've noticed that I don't like about this is how the kickstand comes down. It should, I would think, basically carry on with the first bend. Well, I guess before the first bend, it should kind of carry on that way, or at least not be bent so extremely that way. Because now that it's basically parallel to the bike, you could just give it a shove forward, and I mean, it'll just come right off of the kickstand, which is, well, not great for off-road riding and parking, I suppose, more than riding. I don't know that it's going to be super comfy at 70 miles an hour. We will do some highway testing on it for certain, but boy, it sure feels good for everything that I've done so far. And honestly, whoa, a little sandy there. Feels good in that. Suspension handles really all of this quite well. Very well, I would say. This feels like a very, very solid bike. And the DRZ400 did too. But I would say the suspension, I think, does feel better from what I remember. Of course, that was a long time ago. So I would like to maybe get on a regular DRZ400, an old one, and see how it compares to this to know if my assessment's correct. But this sure feels like a good bike. And I think out on the road, it did feel better too. At 60, I think it felt like it belonged there and was pretty happy, you know, a little vibey. I guess maybe once you got past 55 and up into 60, but 55 I think definitely felt better on this bike than it did from what I remember about my DRZ400. We'll have to see again once we can kind of rail it around some corners if that assessment remains the same or if maybe it does feel a little bit different. But I think it really is just that EFI that it just makes this engine feel very ready to go. What a gorgeous day to be testing this bike out here. Ooh, there was the... Oh, what was that? That wasn't ABS. Back's not on, is it? Oh, it is though. No, it's not. No, it is. It is. Yeah, so the rear, I could tell, kicked on there a little bit, and I definitely don't like that. I never switched this back. There we go. All right. Now we're ready for some gravel road cruising. And I do like the ability to leave the front on. I know some people just want the traction control completely off, but I just don't really see the point on the front. I mean, you don't generally use the front, and if you do, I mean, I guess I could see maybe on single track you'd want to turn it all the way off, but for this type of riding, I think that's the right answer, and I really do like that they have a variety of different settings where you can go all on, you can go rear off, front on, or just completely off. I mean, I think that is awesome, and I think the fact that it turns itself off probably is the right answer. You just, of course, have to watch your watch your little indicator light there when you shut the bike off and then start it again. Oh, there's a goose out there. I don't want to get attacked by a goose. That wouldn't be good. Geese are actually, Canadian geese are fairly, oh, they got babies. We won't go too close. They are fairly aggressive creatures, especially around their young. This is pretty full. Look at that. Beautiful. Boy, and that clutch feels nice. It definitely does not stumble over itself at all. I mean, it really, just everything feels so good about it. So the bars, to me, do feel a little low, but I think maybe that's just because I'm so used to having my bars a little higher, but I think I might roll them just a tad forward at some point. We'll see. Maybe we'll do a video on that. Maybe we'll bring the tools with, which I forgot today. Probably not a wise thing to do on a first ride, but maybe we'll bring them with someday and roll the bars forward and test, see how it feels. Is there anything else you guys would like to see? Let me know down in the comment section, or that you're interested in knowing about this machine. Boy, it just shifts like butter. Oh, and it does just feel so nice. What a fun bike. The seat, honestly, I mean, it does feel hard. There's no way around that. Test out the front. Oh yeah, there's that ABS. Yeah, that works nice. Might have had it in a little higher gear than I should have, slowing down there, but we figured it out. So yeah, definitely let me know if you guys have any specific questions or topics you'd like me to cover on this. I plan on doing all sorts of different things with it, and I will, like I said, put a lot of miles on it. Man, that clutch pulls, I think that's got to pull easier than the XR, the DR, which with, well, 7,000-ish miles on the DR, could probably use just a new cable in general. But with the fairly low miles on the XR, I would think that it should be fairly easy. But that's just, I think part of it, this just feels like a very nice motorcycle. Ooh, what a good bike. Suzuki, as for now anyways, as of this moment, you were right. This is definitely a motorcycle of the premium variety, I would say, and the price, I think, makes a lot more sense now. I was wrong. Would I like to see it cheaper? Would I like to pay it closer to the DRZ-400 price point? Well, of course, but wouldn't we all? Work hard for our money. We want to get our value out of whatever we spend it on, but I'm feeling like I got my money's worth out of this thing, or that I'm going to anyway. This is a nice machine. It seems like it will pretty happily creep along at about 6 miles an hour without the throttle being opened or the clutch being feathered. Pretty slow speed, not quite TW speed, but not bad. It feels fairly well balanced here too. Definitely a little top heavy, but certainly not like it wants to drag you to the ground too bad. Yeah, that suspension is firm, but boy, it handles, you know, just about everything very nicely. And I did go through and check all of the settings. And if you guys are unfamiliar, this does have, well, almost a completely fully adjustable suspension on it. It's got the most adjustments of just about, I think, any bike that I've ever owned, even the 701 Enduro, I believe, because it's got a, I suppose there's not a preload adjustment for the forks, but you've got your rebound damping, which is the little screws in the very center of the tubes, and then you've got a compression damping setting just like that at the very bottom of the tubes, so that just adjusts how fast the suspension can collapse and then expand. And then the rear also has that. Oh, we got to stand up a bit. How does that feel? It feels like the bars are a little low. I think rolling them forward make it feel a bit better. Pegs definitely feel high, and I'm not really liking that they are rubber isolated, which those we will pull out. Figured we'd just ride it completely stock, but the rear suspension has a preload adjustment, of course, for weight and for luggage, which is the spring itself, how much load you're putting on the spring before you ever put any weight on it. And in increasing that, tightening it down will make your load carrying capacity go up, and reducing it will make it go down. That's supposed to mean no Jeeps. This is no trucks allowed. So, since we're a road vehicle, we will also not go any farther. But we will continue talking about the suspension. Hopefully get this out of the way. So the back also has a compression and rebound damping, but it has a high and low speed compression damping, which basically means that you're able to adjust what happens when the suspension is being compressed very quickly. So if you're running over hard terrain fast or rough terrain fast, that would be the setting that you would adjust for that. And then for the sort of easier riding, slow speed riding, you know, the sort of comfort portion of the ride, when the suspension is not being compressed quickly, then that would be your low speed, which is honestly, I mean, really kind of cool. The only thing is there really isn't that many adjustments for the, I think it's the high speed, I believe. There's only, I think, well, 3 settings, and it just, factory setting is the middle one, which that one I did not check, but the other ones, those are all just a flathead, and the other one requires a tool, which I decided to just leave under the seat because, as I mentioned earlier, you got to take 2 side panels off, I think, or at least 1 side panel off, and then it's super easy to get to the tools. Well, I shouldn't say the tools, the screwdriver and the sort of socket that you use to take the seat off, but then it's a couple fasteners to take the white side covers off, and then it's even a couple more to take the seat off. So I just said, forget it. I trust that if the rest of them were set properly, that one is too. So we should be on stock suspension settings, but of course we'll be able to dial those in, of course, 1 click at a time as we put some more miles on this thing to figure out exactly where it performs best. And as far as suspension goes, I don't intend on making any changes to the suspension. Of course, that could change, but from a aftermarket part standpoint, but I may lower this, and then I might put it right back to stock height. We'll see, but as I've kind of mentioned earlier, the higher center of gravity for the majority of the riding that I do isn't really the greatest thing, and I found lowering the XR650, which of course is a heavier bike, I found that really improved that bike's rideability for me in the type of riding that I do. And of course that bike has, well, 13 1/4 or so inches of ground clearance when it's completely stock, and still over 12 inches of ground clearance now that it's lowered. So I mean, lowered is a relative term. This thing I think has, 11 inches of ground clearance, something like that. So dropping it an inch or so, I don't think would be the worst thing. Then it would basically just be DR650 territory, which I suppose I have hung the DR650 up on a log before. And speaking of that, and like I mentioned earlier, this thing's definitely going to need some protection on the bottom before we do anything like what I've done with the XR and the DR on the single tracks that we've got available in the area. But I think having it lowered a bit would probably make it feel a lot more fun and playful and glued to the road out here. And I'm not saying you can't ride it like this. Obviously I am, and I'm having fun. But, well, if you don't need it a mile in the air, there's very little in the way of handling that is improved by having it higher up in the air. And in my opinion anyways, again, my unexpert opinion, there's quite a bit to be gained. So the seat is certainly feeling, well, firm, but I don't know if it would soften up just a bit. I don't know that I would mind it. What I really like about this seat in comparison to every other stock seat that I've used is that it's actually fairly grippy, and it's not nearly as grippy as the gripper top seat on the XR or the DR, but it really feels nice. And that's one of the things that I really have come to dislike about stock seats. I suppose the Gen 3 KLR seat, that was fairly sticky as well, but this feels pretty darn good. And of course, if you sit right to the front like you should be when you're riding off-road like we are, it does get a little bit thinner, but towards the back, I don't know, I'm not really feeling all that uncomfortable on it. Oh yeah, it just shifts and it just feels like butter. Taking off is so nice on this thing. What an awesome motorcycle. I'm sorry, Suzuki. I underestimated what you could have done with this bike, and a lot of people I know are pretty down on this bike, sort of like I was. I try to be honest, but not, well, nasty or overzealous for no reason. I try to keep a level head in all my assessments. And a lot of people I know really wanted this bike to have a 6 gear and to have more horsepower. And of course, we'll see, what this thing's like once we get some more testing done on it, and maybe my assessment of that will change. But boy, it sure feels really nice and snappy so far. And I mean, I don't know, I'm not a huge fan of riding over 55, 60 miles an hour anyway. I mean, obviously you can still get in a wreck and get hurt at any speed, the more miles I put on bikes nowadays, the more I start to worry. And again, I don't ride that much anymore, not near as much as I used to, but the more I get to worrying that something's going to happen. And, you know, obviously something can happen off-road too, but at least you're kind of in control. We're out on the pavement. I don't know. I don't want anything to happen that is going to interfere with my riding, but also interfere with family life and the kids. So that's, I think, a lot of the reason actually that I did decide to go with this over the 390 Adventure R, is that bike really is meant more for, you know, being able to be out on the road. And I think it'll be fun to still, you know, manipulate this bike a little bit to be a little bit more adventure and road oriented as far as wind protection and navigation and that sort of thing go. But I don't know. I've got the trailer. I'm looking at buying a truck again someday, so I don't have to borrow my wife's vehicle all the time to haul this thing around. And I don't know. I'm much happier off-road anyways. That's always what I've enjoyed. And I think this is going to be the perfect bike for that. So that really, I think, kind of played a big part in why I ended up with this one. But it also just seemed like the right decision, to be honest. And when you kind of grow a little bit in your faith and realize that sometimes you have thoughts and feelings for a very specific reason, and realize that you're being pointed in a specific direction, well, it kind of makes things definitely a lot easier and a lot clearer. And this just seemed like the right decision, and I think that it certainly was. And I hope you guys are excited about it and you enjoy the videos that I make on it. I cannot wait to get out and put some more miles on it. I'm really enjoying the DRZ4S. If this is half throttle, I mean, it's not the 701 Enduro, but boy, it sure does seem willing and ready to take off. And it's got a nice sound to it too. And it just pulls. And I mean, it might kind of fall on its face after half or three-quarter, we don't know yet, but I don't really think it's going to. I think this is going to be a fun machine. So thanks for watching, guys. Take care, stay safe, stay swanky, get out and enjoy this beautiful world that God created any chance you get. And if you can't do that right now, there's some more videos here to check out. In the meantime, if you guys want to see more videos like this on the DRZ4S or any of the other bikes that I talked about today, don't be afraid to hit that subscribe button, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.